What's up, everybody, players, coaches, whoever is tuning in. This is Coach Korey Harris here with The Transition, a real resource for coaches. I am joined by a super special guest, my man, Sean J. McCaw. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it deeply.
Thank you. Thank you for the chance to come on and hopefully inform your viewers, listeners, all that. Maybe I can help somebody out one day. That's what it's all about for me.
Yes, sir. Amen. I love that. So real quick, you are a player education specialist. Can you
Yes.
define what that term means? Help us out, brother.
Well, actually, that's a term that I actually made up because there isn't anyone really doing what I do. There's one guy that I know of that is doing something similar, but no one is really out there to educate the players and especially foreigners that want to come over to Europe or overseas period to educate them on what it takes. And especially someone with my pedigree. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I played for 13 years overseas in 6 different countries. I also coached on the highest levels. I coached first division in Germany, second division in Germany, and also the whole youth structure here in Germany. So, and I still live here. That means I still have a lot of my connections. I have a lot of people that I can reach out to if I don't know someone. Yeah, so I think that's something that I have as an advantage. But for me, it's only about helping. It's only about helping guys and girls understand what it takes to be a professional athlete overseas.
So what brought you to this point of wanting to educate? Like, why not become an international agent or a scout or a coach, or like what brought you to kind of creating your own lane?
Well, I actually coached for 9 years after I retired.
Okay.
And I decided to take a break for the family, and I went into teaching. And that's always been kind of my lane, to teach. That's why I got into coaching. That's why I'm now doing what I do as a counselor at the school where I'm at. So it's always been kind of my lane. And I took about a good 3-4 years off and didn't really watch too much basketball, didn't do anything with basketball because I was a little bit burned out. And then in 2020, I started rewriting my book, which I had written many, many years before that. It's called Same Name, Different Game, which is basically a guide for players that want to come overseas to play basketball. So I started redoing that, and I decided to self-publish it because that's all the rage now. So it made it a little bit easier. And once I started doing that, it kind of, you kind of get sucked back in with basketball. It's you can never leave the game totally. So once I started doing that, then people started reaching out to me that had bought the book and say, hey, can you give me a little bit more information? And that led to what I do now with the consultation with SJM Consultation. I'm SJM Consultant. And I just try to help players out with as much information and valuable tools that they need to help with their success. It's not guaranteed for everyone, but if you don't have the information, you have a very, very minimal chance.
That's right. No, I love that. Awesome. Just the simple fact that you kind of leveraged your experience and probably some of like the pitfalls and struggles and things you've encountered on your own to now pay it forward and make sure that others get like a springboard, right? And get an advantage. I love that. And then the fact that you wrote a book, then rewrote it, like that just proves to me that you're coming from a place of expertise. This is like a progression. This is thought out. It's a system. This is not like ad hoc, like you're just talking from some, rooftop or something like that. But let's keep going, man. So talk about, I guess, some of the misconceptions, right, that aspiring pros have, or that the everyday college player has when they're approaching the international kind of transition where they know they can't play in the NBA maybe, or the WNBA on the women's side. And so they're thinking alternatively, like, all right, I'll just go overseas. Like, that's kind of the phrase, I'll just go overseas. Like, what are those misconceptions that you come across, and how do we debunk them?
Well, the biggest one is that it's easy, and it's not. It's to come overseas to play ball, it's not just about basketball. And that's why I named my book aptly Same Name, Different Game, because it's the same game you've been playing your whole life. If you've reached a certain level of talent and you've gone to college or whatever, and you think you want to play overseas, that's all well and good, but it's more than just that. It's you're going to another country with another possibly another language, another culture. The lifestyle is different over here. The basketball is also different over here. They have a lot of different rules than what you've experienced back home in college or whatever. So the biggest misconception that it's very easy to come over here and play. There's a lot of guys and girls that are trying to get over here. There's a lot of guys and girls that are here, already. So they're not trying to give up the spots either. So it's very difficult to come over here. And if you have the right resources, if you have the right tools, if you have the right knowledge, then you kind of level the playing field. But without the knowledge, it's going to be really tough. So that's misconception number one. Second one is that you have to be a big time D1 player to come over here. That's not true. There's so many players that have come from NAIA, D2, D3 schools that are over here making a living. Some are making more, some are making less, but you don't have to be a top D1 player to come overseas to play ball. That's a misconception. And third misconception is that you're going to make a lot of money. Sadly, not everybody's making money.
That's right.
Guys that are playing in the EuroLeague, those guys are making money. And if you're playing just in a normal league in Germany or whatnot, you can make a lot of money. But your first couple of years, you're probably not going to make as much money as you think you're going to make.
Got you.
I would say the average, very, 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 very average player overseas is making $3,000 a month plus. But that includes possibly a car, probably an apartment, and could be some food plus some bonuses. So, and that's tax free, and that's all going pretty much into your pocket. So that's a pretty good living if you know how to save your money. But there's guys and girls out here that are playing for $200 a month.
Yeah.
So it really, the range really varies from very low to really high.
No, that's deep. Just those couple or few misconceptions that you just broke down. I hope it's not deterring anybody or not scaring anybody that's listening to this, but it should just give you the real of like, okay, there comes a cost with this. Like you have to understand what you're getting yourself into and still be willing to make that same decision that you thought you were willing to make before.
Right.
I'm reminded of a young man by the name of Kyle Fogg, who plays right now in the CBA in China for the Liaoning Leopards. I got the chance to coach Kyle when he played for the Beijing Royal Fighters in China. Long story short, he gave us his story when we were sitting at dinner our first year together. And he basically said that he was making somewhere around like $500, $600 his very first season out of playing high level, like major Power 5 basketball. He was making $500 a month. And I think he was in Ireland. And it wasn't until he got to like maybe year 7 or 8 that he said where he was making enough that he didn't have to like, work another job or, yeah. So, I mean, now he's making, a couple million in the CBA. Shout out to Kyle. He's in double digit years now. He's a vet. But that rings true, what you just said. So staying in this same lane, talk about just some of like the prerequisites, or what would be the things, if I had to list them out on a typical college player's resume, that would make him or her stand out to an overseas scout, GM, some type of a consultant for an organization who maybe is a runner and helps them find players. Like, what would separate them and make them a candidate versus I just played D1 like you said, so that's enough?
It's strange, man. It's really about timing and the needs of teams. Your resume won't do you a whole lot of good. It doesn't matter if you're NAIA or D1. What is probably the most important thing for players that are just starting out is the choice of their agent. Hopefully, they have someone who is willing to represent them. Then it's a little bit easier. For those of the players that don't have an agent, it's going to be much tougher. So that's why I write in my book. My book starts basically at the end of your junior season. and gives the
Mhm.
steps what you need to do in order to finish your college career and hopefully look for an agent, because not everyone has agents knocking down their doors. And for
Right.
those of you that don't have an agent, you have to go to them. But you can't just write to an agent and say, "Hey, I'm ready to go overseas." So I think that's a really big important factor that is well overlooked by a lot of people, because, like I said
Yeah.
before, they think it's easy. So they think
Right.
they're just going to write a team and they're going to say, "Hey, I'm here, give me a contract." It's not like that anymore. So the days of making a lot of money without an agent are definitely over.
Okay.
Definitely no question at all. And even smaller teams are using agents because they want to use an agent that they know and trust. And of course, right now, guys and girls are writing to teams like crazy right now.
Yeah.
They get stacks, just like agents. They get stacks of emails like this every day. So what sets you apart is the relationship that your agent hopefully has with a team, and that's the big difference maker in how much money you're going to make, and also the longevity that you'll have playing overseas.
Wow, that's a gem. So, okay, let's play a hypothetical game. If I have two graduating seniors who both have reputable agents that
Mhm.
an overseas organization respects, one played Division 1, one played D2, D3, and AIA. Talk about the sliding scale that can balance out how the team or the organization would perceive maybe two shooting guards or two power forwards, but played on different levels. Like, how
Right.
could these guys over here in this pool, even though they're from a smaller level, balance out the fact that they didn't play Power 5 basketball? Like, what on their resume stands out if their agents can't, maybe trump the situation?
Of course, then it's going to come down to how you played. That's
Okay.
they still want a player, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
they're going to look at your resume. The resume gets your foot in the door. How many points you averaged, all of that stuff. That's still a very viable, measurable thing, right? Um, if you are a D2, D3 NAIA All American, that's pretty much
Mm,
setting you to Division 1 level. If you're not, and if you're not an NAIA Division 2, Division 3 All American, of course, the sliding scale get tougher, right?
yeah. Yeah.
The thing is, hopefully, you have good video film of good games that your agent can ship around for you. That's imperative. Have video that is good in quality and has a good game. Now, I might say a good game, but a good game to a player doesn't necessarily mean it's a good game for a scout, agent, or a coach.
Talk
Um,
about it.
Players vastly overvaluate themselves.
Wow.
Players are the
Wow.
worst judges of their own abilities than anyone besides their mother, right?
Wow.
Um, so what I looked for, I can speak on me and for a lot of the coaches that I know and agent friends that I know. They're not looking for the 32-point game. That's great. Um, but they're looking for small details that players don't even think of. So just for an example, if you're going to send a tape out to an agent or to a team, it should be very front heavy. So most of your action should be in the beginning of the game, right? They're probably not going to watch the whole 40 minutes to see your 32 points. But if you had 15, 16 in the first quarter, that's okay. But it doesn't come down just to points. They also want to see things like your competition. They're
Mm,
scouting your competition. They want to see the level of your competition to see if you are good enough comparative to what their competition is like.
correct. Correct.
And they want to see, this might sound really weird, but they want to see your mistakes. They want to see what you do the split second after you lose a ball. If you turn it over,
Hmm.
do you put your head down? Do you yell at somebody else? They want. I'm going to tell you something I looked at that might sound really funny, but I liked. Hopefully, there would be a camera view where I could see the bench. I would look at when the player gets subbed out. Does he give his coach 5? Does he give everybody on the team 5, or does he sulk? If I'm looking and he walks by the coach, yo, I'm done. I don't need those problems. I don't need those problems in my life. You might
Yes,
have had
sir.
32,
Yes,
but
sir.
if you're sulking when you come out of the game, then that means I have to deal with that on some level. And if you did it in college, you're going to do it as a pro.
That's right.
So, or I would also look at, like I said, a big no-no for me, a deal breaker for me was you turn the ball over and you don't try to get it back right away. You don't run back on defense. You don't, that split second. I'm watching that split second. What do you do when you turn the ball over?
Yeah.
And if you sulk or put your head down, I'm turning off.
Got you.
That's not what I want in my program. That's not the kind of person that I would like to pay money to that's going to give up on a play. There's players like sand on the beach. I can find somebody that has that high motor.
Got you. Got you. Powerful stuff. And coach, by the way, I didn't ask earlier. Now I'm calling you coach. Man, you got me locked in. Where did you coach? What
So,
organizations did you coach? In what countries?
I had one of the craziest stories that I've actually never heard of. When I stopped playing, it was during the middle of the season. I was playing in the first league in Germany. I was 34 years old, and I knew that I was going to stop playing that year. That was going to be my final year, and I was supposed to come on this coaching staff after that last season. Make a long story short, we were doing terrible, and we were losing. They fired the coach. They didn't have enough money to hire another coach because they had to pay the other coach out.
Right.
They didn't have enough money. So because I was supposed to come on as an assistant, they asked me if I would basically retire in the middle of the season and become head coach. So
wow.
I coached the last 15 games in the first league, to make a really long story short. And there's in Germany, there's a relegation system. So it's not that everybody stays in the first league. So if you're one of the
like
bottom
soccer.
two teams, exactly. If you're one of the bottom two teams, then you automatically move down. And we were one of the bottom two teams. We didn't do so well. And I won more games than my predecessor, but we didn't win enough to stay in the league. So we dropped down into the second league. And then I coached them also in the second league. So it was Jena, Science City Jena was the name of the team. We were in the first league, and then we also played in the second league. I coached them in the second league as well.
That is amazing. I know at the time it didn't feel amazing, probably, but
it was crazy, man. It was crazy. You can't
that
go
experience
from,
though.
You can't go from. I was there for 2 years as a player. You can't go from partying with these guys, hanging out with them on the bus, chopping it up in the locker room, to then, hey, get on the line, run to suicide. Not an easy thing, but for the experience, I would do it all over again if I could. The experience was amazing. I wasn't ready for it, but the experience was what I needed.
The fact that you were able to see both the business side as well as being within the four lines on the court within the same season, right? You're probably hearing negotiations for contracts, talking with general managers.
Learn a whole lot of different views.
Yeah, and I'm only speaking just from my short experience in China. So that is a valuable experience to anybody out there who's an aspiring coach. Like, it's going to come with some bad. You might as well just, like he's talking about, the hurdles and obstacles you have to go through as a player who wants to play overseas. If you're a coach watching this, I know some of you guys are in the mentorship group and you want to coach overseas. It doesn't get any harder than coaching overseas. Like that, I would put that over coaching in the league or coaching in college any day. But let's keep going.
Coaches are hired to be fired.
Right. Right. So let's go back to that sliding scale kind of analogy that we were using. So again, we have two players, same position. They both have the same caliber of agent, and they're maybe looking at a prospective team, an organization. If all things were even, would the All-Americans or the all-conference players, D2, D3 level, would they potentially be affected in the international market where they might have to start with a lower pay scale than because it's an even platform? I'm saying this guy on this left side was a Division I All-American. Mm-hmm. Would they be starting out making, $700 a month while this guy's starting out making maybe $2,500?
Really, it depends. It's really like right place at the right time.
Yeah, that's like you said.
Your agent has connections and can get you in a higher level thing, it's not going to matter if the film is good and the team and the coaches think that both players are equally good. It's only going to be what that coach or what that general manager feels is the best fit. Then they start looking maybe at off the court stuff. They won't go in depth like the NBA does or something like that, checking your background or something like that. But they will ask around. Maybe they'll call your college coach or something like that. They won't do it as extensively as the league, for sure. Now.
Yeah, the league is the
then
feds,
it's going to be
sure.
It's going to be intangibles. It's going to be, okay, maybe the GM calls you. If it's really a close decision, maybe the coach calls you. It's going to be that call, that impression that you make. Things like that. It's going to be really the intangibles. If all things are the same, it's going to be the strength of your agent or the relationship that your agent has with said club. It's going to be, if they get you on the phone, how you talk to them, how professional you seem, how eager you seem, how willing you are to adapt. That's definitely the biggest thing that I tell everyone, that you have to be ready to adapt. It's not going to be like the States. It's really not. So all things considered, it's going to be a lot of intangibles, and it's going to be the right place at the right time. The right coach sees you, the right GM sees you, and hopefully they pick you.
Got you. So for everybody listening, timing is everything. It's not always about all the work you put in or your game film or your resume. Sometimes it takes patience. A lot of times it takes patience. So I hope that that's sinking in. Sean, tell me, when you hear the phrase "overseas ain't for everybody," what comes to mind? What do you think of? You're laughing, but elaborate that phrase for me.
Man, I came from a very low mid-major college, Southern Utah University. I had a great career. I had about 7 agents that were talking to me. I chose one, and then I came overseas. I can honestly tell you, there were many players that I've played against that were far more talented than I was, but they couldn't last a year.
Wow.
Couldn't last a year because of what I said before, the ability to adapt. Because you're coming over here, and this is one of the biggest indicators how well you're able to adapt. Players that come from America overseas, they get called with the American travel right away. My first preseason game, I got called for travel 7 times. 7.
Wow.
Because we're used to leading with that right. If you're going right, you're leading with that right foot before you put the ball down. Over here, you have to put that ball down, or you're going to get called. The refs are watching Americans. It's not as bad as it used to be. They've kind of come closer more to NBA style, but it's still a work in progress. And if you don't learn quick that you have to use a cross step, or you have to dribble first before you lead that foot, you're going to get called for a bunch of travels. You're going to get called for a bunch of turnovers. And if you don't adapt, you will get sent home. You'll probably be there for a 2-week contract, a 2-week tryout contract. If you don't adapt in those 2 weeks, they will send you home, and they will find somebody that can do that. So that's a really small indicator. But adaptability is also not turning your nose up at the food, being able to try to maybe learn a language, or be open to it, not sitting in your house the whole time playing PlayStation, but getting out and seeing the sights, doing things like that. Adaptability is way more than just the X's and O's on the court.
Yes, sir. So you would say those are some of the biggest challenges for most imports, is that adaptability piece and everything that just comes along with that. Got you.
Well, you're gonna be getting paid late. You're gonna have different kind of practices. Let you have a older Yugoslavian coach. You're gonna be doing things that you've never seen before, and if it pisses you off, that Yugoslavian coach will send you home. That is just, that Balkan coach will send you home. If you have a problem with the training methods, and because you're not used to it, preseason practicing 3 times a day, if you're not in shape, you will get sent home. Like
Yeah.
it's your job. It's your job.
Yeah.
And they will be quick to send you home because there is somebody back home waiting to take your spot.
I hope y'all heard what he said. He said 3 practices a day.
Oh, preseason is brutal. Woo, woo. Because think about it. That's your job.
Right.
You don't have to go to class. You don't have to
Mhm.
work on the side. That is your 100% job. So a typical preseason on a higher level, maybe in some lower levels, it's not like this, but
Yeah.
on a higher level where I played, you're going away for training camp and you are literally practicing in the morning. Then you
Mhm.
got lunch. Then you're
Mhm.
going to lift or run. Then you're going to practice again at night. Then you got a
That's right.
film session. Like you're literally practicing 3 to 5 times. I count video. I count running.
Yeah, that's
Also
all
as a
reps.
practice. So you're talking about you're going away for 2 weeks playing games and practicing 3 to 5 times every day. So it's no slouch in the beginning. And it's something you have to get used to.
For sure. Uh, your story reminds me of one of my clients, Mike Scott. He's playing overseas in France. He's had a solid NBA career. He's got to stop right now playing for Sloop Nancy in France. And he
Yeah,
said
yeah.
during the
Okay, I know what you're
season,
talking about. I know what you're
yeah,
talking
they're
about.
still practicing twice a day during the
Yes,
season.
yes,
So,
yes,
he said he had more calluses on his feet and everything than he had over his whole career. But, each situation is different. It reminds me also of in China, my first job was actually with the Guangdong Tigers. We went away into the mountains for our preseason camp, and we did everything you just said. 3, 4 practices a day, not counting some occasional film sessions during the week. It was rough. It was rough on me,
yeah.
and I was a coach, so I can only imagine what the players' bodies felt like. But let's flip it around. So I want to also expose the positives for a minute.
Yes,
Like, what are
yes,
some of the beautiful things that come with just being courageous enough to get outside of your comfort zone? Because I know it wasn't easy for you to leave
no,
your school, leave your university, your family, everything you knew,
yes,
especially as
exactly.
a black man, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
go live abroad alone. Like,
yes.
talk about some of the positives and the beautiful things about living abroad, playing abroad.
Well, I mean, I'm a prime example, man. I've been living pretty much since I left college. I've been living overseas. I really didn't get home too much, even in the beginning when I first got over here. So I've been pretty much 27 years living
Wow.
overseas. And the thing is for me, for my situation, this was fantastic. It was a paradise for me. It was everything what I expected or what I had hoped for. And
Wow.
uh, it's not for everyone that kind of stay over here or things like that. And it doesn't have to be for everyone. Even those of you that still go back home in the summers and still go back home when your career is over, you can make good money. You can help your family. But the thing for me that set itself apart, why I decided to stay here was I don't have to worry about a lot of the things that I have to worry about when I'm home, when I'm back home. I'm from Las Vegas, um, and I don't have to worry about police brutality. I don't have to worry about
Wow.
gangs. I don't have to worry about a lot of things. I have a family. I've got kids. My my kids are mixed. My kids don't
Mm.
have any kind of racism problems. None. Zero.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
Um, and things of that nature were for me very important. It's safe. Where I live is safe. It's not, of course, it's not safe
Yes, sir.
everywhere in Europe,
Yes,
but
sir.
where I chose to live, it was because it was safe. Um, and I think for those of you that aspire to come overseas, accept the challenge, accept the open or be open to new cultures and new things, and that for me was very important. That's why I played in 6 different countries because I wanted to experience different cultures while I was able to. I didn't know if I was really going to stay over here or not, but I wanted to see as much as I could, and I decided, and I ended up staying here. But up until I came back to Germany the second time, I had been to 5 other countries and played, and it was a great time, and that I didn't know if I would ever get again. That's why I'm saying
Mhm.
just kind of embrace the situation that you're in, because there's a lot of people that would really literally kill for the chance to play overseas and have the lifestyle that you could have. It's a great lifestyle if you're able to adapt.
Wow. Very eloquently put. Can you shed some light on some of like the business opportunities that players receive when they pay their dues as you described? Like I met a lot of guys who, when they were playing in China, would have never gotten shoe contracts or never gotten,
Right.
brand deals in America because it was so I guess you could just call it like overcrowded, right? It was overpopulated with, the
Right.
mega stars. But
Yeah.
in another country, they could become the LeBron or the whoever of that province or that country or that league. Can you shed some light on just some of those opportunities when you make that decision, as you said, to take the challenge and brand yourself overseas?
Well, especially in the time of social media now, it's really easy to position yourself into a brand. Not only where you play, but also back home as well. You can take
Mm,
the experiences, the things that you've learned here back home as well. For example, when you're playing overseas, most teams have sponsors, and
okay.
you usually have some kind of sponsoring functions where you have to go hobnob with the sponsors. You have to
Yep.
drink a beer. You have to do things like that. Get to know those sponsors. These are people that are running major corporations. And if those kind of people can't help you or inspire you, then no one can. These are people that are doing it on a high level. Hobnob with them, get to know them, possibly befriend them, learn from them. Um, Things like that will bring you far. And now with social media, you have it all in your hand. It's what you
Yeah.
make of it.
Yeah.
And I think these days it's a lot easier to brand yourself and do a lot of things that it wasn't possible in 1995 when I first came over here. So I was
Mm,
hobnobbing with sponsors, basically to make sure that they liked me. So when it was time to re-up, they
yeah.
might come out of the pocket a little bit more for me. That was my
Yeah.
way of branding myself, kind of advertising for myself. These days, you can do a lot more than back then.
For sure. You're talking about branding yourself, and it's March Madness right now, or it's getting ready to start up. Players brand themselves here, college players, when they make big shots, big moments, game winners,
Yes,
and whatnot. And then that film replays almost
right,
forever now, right? One shining moment. Talk about the difference and the magnitude of big moments overseas. Like overseas, it's called a derby game, right? It's
yes,
rivalry
yes,
games.
yes,
People think Duke and UNC is a big time thing, but they don't know anything about the stuff that goes on over in
right.
Europe, right? Can you explain some of just like the not just the antics, but just the magnitude of how serious the culture and the people surrounding these organizations take those derby games?
Right. Derbies are basically rival games. So, like you said, like UNC Duke, on the college section. But over here, it's like a madness. It's like March Madness every time that there's a rivalry game, a derby game. For example,
Yeah.
Partizan Belgrade against Red Star Belgrade. These are two teams
Mm.
in the same city in overseas, and those fans are just nuts. You can't compare them to even Duke fans running, the Cameron
Nah,
crazies.
yeah,
It's a totally different level,
they
and
get physical over there.
they're lighting flares. They're jumping around the whole game. They're cheering they're booing every time you touch the ball. It's a totally different atmosphere, and for some
Yeah.
people that can be very intimidating. I loved it, but those I just made a post about it actually on my website. Those derby games are when you become a legend. If you play great the whole season, people will love you. The fans will love you. You have good interaction with the fans. That's all good. But if you win a derby game
Mm.
and you played well in a derby game, or you hit the game-winning shot in a derby game, that could literally be the difference between how much money you make the next year, because
Wow.
people remember the derby games. They even if you have a losing season, if you win those derby games, oh, then that makes up for everything. And so those are very heated contests, and depending on the different country you're in, you might have two or three derby type games. So in Germany, they would classify a derby game as someone in your own state. So where I live in New Saxon, in the first league, there are, I think, 4 pro teams in our state. And those derby games, you're talking about 8 games. You're talking about 6 games,
Wow.
right? Against
Yeah.
another team in your state. So those games are very hot and highly contested. So you play great in those derby games, and you might be a legend forever.
Got you. What's the craziest memory you have from any of your derby games, playing or coaching?
I had this is crazy. I had a derby game in a championship series one time.
Okay.
And it just so happens that it was my former team. So I had been on one team for 4 years. I changed and went to a new team, and we played against them in the championship. And the craziest, this is almost embarrassing. The craziest moment was we ended up winning the series. And in the last game, I had an and one with, I don't know, 3 seconds left on the clock. And that sealed it. It was and one. I make it. It's a layup. I make it. I get fouled. And it was at our place, but there were still fans from the other team there. They had their own fan section. And as I made the shot, I got fouled. I turned to the crowd and I wanted to like celebrate with my fans, right?
Yeah.
But I found myself by my former fans in their crowd. And I could just see the rage, and I'm celebrating. Yeah, I'm going all crazy. And I look sometimes you see one person in the stands.
Yeah.
And I happened to see the assistant coach who coached me for 4 years. I saw his wife in the stands. Now, mind you, I had played there for 4 years. I had eaten at their house. I knew their kids. Their coach had practiced with me, I don't know how many times individually. Like, I knew them. I see her in the stands, and she's just giving me the finger. Just yelling at me and giving me the finger. And I was like loving it. I was loving it. Like, I'm like beating on my chest. I'm loving it. I'm going to the free throw line to sink this free throw, and that's game over, and we got the title.
Blouses.
So that was absolutely by far the craziest situation I ever lived through a derby. Yeah.
Man, the wife of your assistant coach, who you probably
like
got
just
love
giving me the
for,
finger, just
giving
giving
you
me
the big F you.
just yelling at me, and I couldn't hear what she was saying because it was so loud. But I locked eyes with her, and she was just giving me the business.
Yeah, that should let you know right there. Like, it's no comparison. Yeah. Nobody's doing that to you in college if they love you. Nobody. Yeah. Come on, man. No. Come on. All right. So that's gonna be hard to transition from, but let's try to let's transition a little bit to more of like some informational stuff for I guess our college athletes and aspiring pros who want to know how to navigate the process of finding an agent. So, what should a player look for? Like, what are some characteristics or attributes a player should look for in a prospective agent? What makes a good agent? What makes a shady agent?
That's an interesting question, because it's hard to say if when you're talking to agents, you can ask them all the questions. I would advise my clients to ask certain questions, before they choose an agent. But you never know how good your agent is until a couple of things happen. I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
One agent might be good for you, but he might be crap for me. You can't judge an agent by what he does or the kind of jobs he gets for someone else when it comes to you.
Okay.
It's a two totally different things. So even if you're the same position, you can't look at someone envious and be like, oh, this agent is getting this guy jobs, so he's going to be able to get me those kind of jobs. Wow. For some, yes, maybe, but not in all cases. So the thing what I always tell people is you'll never know how good your agent is until one of 3 things happens. One is good, 2 are bad. So the good is the very basic, can the agent get you a job? That's the most basic thing what agents do. They have to get you a job.
Right.
And just for those of you that don't know this, you never have to pay an agent, because there's a lot of scams out there. So if an agent tells you have to pay them some money, they're not serious and you should run. But the most basic thing that an agent does is try to get you a job, because if that agent does not get you a job, he does not get paid. He or she does not get paid. Okay. And they usually get paid from the teams. That's that point. That's the most basic thing what an agent can do. The next 2 points are definitely bad things. And then you really know how good your agent is. If you get hurt or if you get fired, then you'll know how good your agent is. Because if you get hurt, no, let's say if you get fired, happens to everybody. Happened to me one time too. If you get fired from a team, that agent has to negotiate your buyout, because just because it says let's say you make $5,000 a month, just because you got 4 months on your contract doesn't mean you're going to get all what 20,000 that you are owed. You will probably get, if you have a good agent, you will probably get 3 months pay. If the agent doesn't have the greatest relationship with that club, you might get 1, right? It's an agent's job to handle that buyout, first of all, and to get you another job as soon as possible. And then you'll know how good your agent is on the amount of money they can get from a team that just fired you, and how quickly he or she can find you a job. And hopefully what they try to do is they try to base it on, okay, you get fired, you were making $5,000 a month, but the new team, they only have $3,000 a month. So there's 4 months left. How can we bridge the buyout so that you're not losing money? That's very, very important to know. A good agent will try to possibly get you more money than what you would have made, but it depends on the availability from the teams. But at the least, make it so that you don't lose money by getting fired.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's take in turn if you get hurt. Basically the same premise. They have to negotiate some kind of severance pay for you to end your contract. Basically the same thing, maybe 1 to 3 months you could get, maybe more depending on the worker comp laws in the country you're in. That's also a big factor.
Okay.
But in general, you're talking about 1 to 3 months, maybe a little bit more, maybe something around 4 or 5. And then they also have to take care of your rehab. They have to figure out, maybe you get surgery there, maybe you fly home. If you get surgery there, what's the rehab going to look like? Will you still get paid while you're there? These are all things that an agent will figure out really fast, and has to do really incredibly quick work.
Yeah.
If you're injured seriously, I'm not talking about a sprained ankle. I'm talking about I broke my leg my first year overseas, and my agent was quick on it. They came to my manager came to my I broke my leg in a game, mind you, and they took me back. It was an away game. They took me back. They had to do the surgery right away, and the next day, the team came in and offered me a contract for the next season, because they had talked to my agent, and my agent had a good relationship with them, and the bottom line is they liked me as a player. If I would have been a crack player, they wouldn't have done it. They would have bandaged me up and sent me home. But the next day they came in and said, hey, this is a contract for next season. You will make the same amount of money as you did this season.
Wow.
But you have to stay here to rehab. You can't go home. This was in November. I had been there 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. And but my agent was on the back end behind the scenes, and he was, negotiating all of this for me. So you really don't know how good of agent you have until one of those 3 things comes into play. And basically finding you a job is the most basic component.
That was a lot. That was a lot right there. If you're watching this, you might have to go back, rewind, write down those 3 keys. But I just want to, while we're in the middle of this, say, Sean, like the stuff you're giving, there's no price tag on it, my brother. I know it's your job to make sure that you put a price tag on what you do, because you can't give out all the gems for free. But this is super valuable, and I'm thankful that you're just here on the platform sharing it. So let me ask you a question that's somewhat connected to what you just described. but it's kind of going in a different direction. So let's say we have another hypothetical: a college player graduates. At first, he may be setting his sights on the NBA.
Mhm.
He hires an agent through a mutual friend. The agent is most likely 9 times out of 10 American. He doesn't get put on any draft boards. He's not going to get an opportunity even to be a two-way player or even a G League player potentially. So now he's setting his sights on playing internationally. So he still has this American agent. Would it be the best situation for him to hire an international agent? And now he has two, to fire his American agent and hire an international agent. So now he has only one, or to just keep his American agent and trust that he has some type of connections.
That is an excellent question because it all depends on what your individual goal is. If you still have that NBA dream, if you still want to try the G League, if you want to do things like that, then I think you need an American agent. Then I definitely think that you need to have an American agent that has connections, that is on site, can travel to the game, can go meet with people, things like that. If that is your dream and you really want to chase that dream, then by all means, please chase it and go for it and have a American-based agent. However, on the flip side, if it is your goal or you've given up on that NBA dream, that G League dream, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to keep an American agent. I know that might piss a lot of agents off, but the truth of the matter is this. You have your American agent, but you want to play in Germany, right? How many American agents are flying overseas and meeting with Telecom Baskets Bonn, Albert Berlin, NBC? How many American agents are going to coffee? Because a lot of deals get made over here over coffee. How many of them are flying over here and really putting in the time to meet with these general managers, these coaches, things like that? Very few, very few. Or like very top EuroLeague type guys. But even those type of guys, they have European partners. They have someone over here that they call on the phone and say, hey, I've got a really good player over here. Can you look for a job? Okay, that's all well and good. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's a normal practice. But here's the thing to think about. If that European agent finds you a job, he's splitting the commission with the American agent.
Correct.
10% is the standard commission. That means 5 goes to the European agent, 5 goes to the American agent. Now, if you are the same caliber player, let's go another hypothetical situation. You are a point guard, you've got the pedigree, you've got everything going. You have an American agent that has a European partner.
Okay.
The European partner has done his homework. He finds the same type of point guard as you. Who do you think he's going to push for that job, for a job?
Wow.
Is he going to push his player who he collects the 10%? Or is he going to push the American guy's agent or guy's player who he gets a total of 5%? Same quality player, same, let's say they went to the same school. They're the same height. They're twins. It doesn't matter. He's going to push for, if Albert Berlin calls him and says, hey, I need a point guard, he's going to look in his roster first because he's going to get the full commission. So it's also the same thing, like I said, if you've got the NBA dream, by all means, have an American agent. He's on site, he's there, he can travel to games, he can network. If you're coming overseas, however, it might make more sense to find a German agent or the country where you might want to play the most. If you want to play in France, try to get a French agent, right? Because it's the same thing overseas. You have a German agent, but you want to play in France. He calls up a guy in France that he knows, and they cooperate, right?
Wow.
They're splitting the fees. They're splitting commission. Because this is a good piece of information. You have to have a French agent to play in France. They have very strict rules. So if I'm a German agent and I want to get you in France, I have to team up with somebody in France because on the contract, it has to be a French agent that signs the contract. So if you're American and you want to go play in France, that American agent 100% has to go through a French agent. So it's a question of what do you want? Do you want to play in the States? Do you want to go for that dream? By all means, do so. Do you want to play overseas? Then I'm not saying you have to fire your agent, your American agent, but you have to
Yeah.
really think about the whys of you having an agent.
That's a lot of game, y'all. That's a lot of game. I hope y'all are pen in hand, notebook, like, or at least just be prepared to cut out some time to watch this on a playback. So let's stay. I love this hypothetical thing we keep doing back and
Let's
forth.
do
By
it.
the
Let's
way,
do
this
it.
was not planned, but I'm
Let's
glad
do
that
it.
you're picking up what I'm putting down. So we've got NBA hopeful. He's on a two-way.
Yeah.
0 minutes per game with his parent organization. So he plays for the South Bay Lakers. He starts every game, but for the LA Lakers, he's a DNP. He's not even on the active roster.
Right.
You know, like I know, they're getting paid somewhere between, 80 to even in some ranges 400K if they're on a real two-way contract, right?
Right.
They're not just G League guys.
Right.
But he also has agents or international organizations contacting him saying you could come play in the ACB league or in the
Right.
CBA or in the Euro League, making somewhat similar to what
Similar money,
he's
yeah.
making. If he's making 400K, something like that, but now he's a star. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Then
not
you're
telling you what to tell these guys, but this is a common thing, I think. Guys holding on to that G League tag because it's an NBA G League tag versus going overseas. Like, what do you, in some of your consultations, without giving us all the gems, what do you say to players in those situations just to maybe like alter their thinking and their perspective?
Well, players that are two-way players in the G League, or even playing a lot in the G League without being a two-way player, those are usually the players that get bigger contracts overseas.
Correct.
Right? So it's really it goes back to the same thing. It's really, what do you want for your career? What do you want? Do you want to sit on the bench and or have a two-way contract, never play with the Lakers, average 28 points in the G League, play G League All-Star, but you never get a real shot over in the Lakers organization? Or do you want to come overseas because if you're that player there, then you're going to get a good contract over here. So you'll make comparable amount of money probably. You're just away from home, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to be the man? Do you want to be a go-to guy overseas, a legend possibly overseas, make around the same amount of money? Or do you want to go for that NBA dream? And I have there's a player who played, how long did he play here? His name is Ricky Paulding. He went to the University of Missouri. He just retired last season over here in Germany. He played for one team in Germany, Oldenburg, which was also one of my former teams. He played there for 16 years, which is totally unheard of. And the guy was making money, like money.
Yeah.
One of the most respected players ever in German basketball. I interviewed him as well. He told me he dropped his NBA dream after the second summer when he got cut from the summer league. Or it was like the last cut, always the last cut.
Yeah.
And he decided, what am I doing this for? And it's and then he came overseas. He played in Greece one year, and then he came to Germany, and he never left. He had his family there. Kids are born there. Kids are growing up in the European system. Like, he was like 16 years here. He just moved back last season. And it's all about when that dream dies for you. How long do you want to hold on to it? And I can't tell somebody when that dream should die. It's for them to decide, okay, maybe it's not going to happen for me, But of course, for every person that comes overseas, there's always like one guy who latches on somewhere on a NBA team roster. There's always those guys. But how often does it really happen? And so you have to think what's best for you, what's best for your family, your situation, and decide, with your agency, with the people that are close to you, what do I want to do for my career?
Another name comes to my mind, and this guy was definitely not a two-way guy. He was in this league on the biggest stage, Marshawn Brooks.
Yes,
playing for the Brooklyn
yes,
Nets,
yes.
but I guess if you watch him, it's almost like he knew he was a star. Like he knew what he should be doing, how many
Yep.
touches he should be getting, and the type of pressure he was willing to play under. Like he wanted to kind of carry the load of an organization. But I don't think that an NBA franchise or front office staff maybe saw him that way.
Yep.
And now I don't know how long he's been in the CBA, but he's that guy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's that guy. He's
Yeah.
legend out there. So I mean, I think they call him like Chinese Kobe or something like that, or CBA Mamba. I don't know, but that just kind of goes even to your point of here's a guy who was making millions, at the highest level, and he would rather go and play somewhere where he can, like you said, play to the level or to the potential that he felt was
Mhm.
for him, and the money didn't necessarily matter. I know he's making significantly less in China than he was, even on his rookie deal probably in the NBA. But so tell me a little bit about the process for female hoopers, because I
Mhm.
know
Totally
you're not
different.
biased. Yeah, you're
No,
not biased. You you
no.
you help both,
Right.
sexes, and I've seen some of your stuff on your social media platform. You've worked a lot also with the female hoop industry, and trying to
Mhm.
help them also break into the international market. So let's say I've got a young lady who's played Division 1, 2, or 3 basketball, and she's not going to get a shot in the WNBA. We know it's much harder to get into the
Yes.
WNBA, right? You have to first of all play 4 years of college basketball. There's
Yes.
less teams, and then
Yeah.
if they draft you, they can still cut you,
Yes. It's
So
cutthroat. It's real cutthroat.
right. So what's the process like for the typical female hooper looking to break into the overseas market?
For women hoopers that want to play overseas, it's much more difficult. Like you
Okay.
said before, there's also less teams here for women than men. The pay scale is also vastly different. And because of the season of the WNBA and how it runs so that the WNBA players finish their seasons and then they come overseas. So you
Correct.
you don't you don't only have competition from college players or professional players that have already been overseas. You have
Right.
competition from WNBA players
That's
who are
right.
going to command huge salaries. So that alone really makes the checks and balances very uneven for a college player that maybe doesn't have the accolades of someone who is able to play in the WNBA. So
Gotcha.
um, for women, it's especially different. Women have a whole different set of reasons why they play or things like that. They have a
Hmm.
whole different skill set. And actually, I think women translate better. American women translate better overseas than men, actually. But it's like I said, there's less teams. The pay scale is different. So even a top D1 player that's coming overseas for a rookie season,
Yeah.
there's no guarantee that you're going to get that job in Turkey because there might be a WNBA player that just won a championship that's coming over there. So you might have to
Hmm.
start out in Sweden. You might have to
Yeah.
start out in a couple of smaller countries where the level is still high. The pay is not the same as on the higher leagues,
Yeah.
but you still get good stats, you still get good exposures, and you can also work your way up the ladder.
Got you. Are there any advantages that you see for a female hooper playing overseas versus just focusing primarily on establishing herself in the WNBA?
Oh, I mean, it's the same as with the guys. If you're not
Okay.
ready to adapt and go for that challenge of learning to adapt in a new country, you're not going to make it. It's clear. It's the same. So it doesn't matter male female. You've really got to be open to challenges and to moving past challenges that you were encounter overseas. And it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what country you're in, what
Yeah.
level you're on. Most of us have faced the exact same problems. The exact
Got you.
same trials and tribulations are not gender specific, but
Yes, sir.
really just a quality of life and everything like that.
Do you see more female players continuing kind of this trend of playing overseas and then sitting out for a WNBA year? Like they'll miss. I can't remember the names of the few women who've done it recently, but within the past few years, we've seen some top tier players get substantial contracts overseas,
Mhm.
be paid more than they're paid in the
And
WNBA,
not go
and then
back.
sit. Yeah,
Mhm.
not go back. Do you think
Yeah.
that's going to continue until the WNBA makes some changes, or
I don't think it's going to be a large trend because
got you
women women first of all don't play as long as men in general because
got
women
you
have a totally different things to think about: kids,
right? Kids,
marriage,
family, right?
settling down. So in general, women don't play professional, whether it be in the NBA or WNBA or overseas. They don't play as long, and that's
Got
why
you.
the trend won't be too much. I don't think
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
There might be the one odd person player that does it, but because really a lot of the women, if you're a bench player, a WNBA bench player, you're definitely making more money overseas. If you're playing in
correct.
Turkey, France, Greece, you're definitely making more money. So
Yeah,
it's a question of, do they want to be away from home so long? Do they want to play in WNBA, then play in Europe? So you're playing year round. How long do you want to do that?
yeah.
And you're in general not playing as many years as men. So it's just a question of what they're looking for. But for the women, it's tougher. It's tougher.
It makes a ton of sense. So, Sean, before I let you go, first off, I've enjoyed every moment of this. Like I said, I felt like this was going to be one of the best one-on-ones I've done on this platform, and you did not disappoint. Tell us more about your services, your programs, how you help players, how you provide consultation services that really just open the door for people to have a better understanding of this whole process that you've been breaking down with us.
Thank you. First of all, like I said before, it all started with this book. Same name, different game. It's pretty much a guide to helping college players go from their junior year all the way through their first year overseas. Everything that can happen in between. Finding an agent, what a standard contract looks like, taxes, um, everything you can think of, right? That the good and the bad that can happen during the course of your first year overseas. That's the
Got you.
first thing. You can find it on Amazon. It's you can find it on there very easily. But I also now started doing consultations as far as mentorships. I do one-on-one mentorships, but I also do maybe a 30-minute one-off where somebody just needs to ask questions. The funny thing is though, is that I would say 90% of what I do, 95% of what I do is free. I am not in this for the money. I'm there to educate. I'm there to help as many people as possible with the information that I have. How do I do that? My Instagram page. I post at least twice a week, either on my blog, on my website, seanjmccall.com, or on Instagram, some kind of useful information that can help players. Um, I have my own podcast called the Eurostep, which I try to interview players, not, and it's actually developed. It's not only basketball players that I interview, but also agents, fans sometimes, um, players that are playing other sports. Like I had a couple of weeks ago, a professional baseball player. They have they
Wow.
have import baseball players overseas. You
Wow.
know,
Wow.
football players. So,
Yeah.
but we all have kind of like the same link. It's really
Mm,
crazy. You have the same
yeah.
experience. But those kind of things are free. I want to inform people. And if anybody hits me up, I'm mostly on Instagram. If anybody hits me on Instagram and you have a random question, I'm not going to charge you for that. I answer all my DMs, every single one of them myself. I don't have
Amazing.
a team.
Amazing.
So it's a one-man show. So if you write me and you get something back, it was from me, right? So
Gotcha.
if it was you got a random question, hey, no problem. I'll answer that. If you got more questions, and maybe let's schedule a 15-minute freebie, you know, then you can ask a couple more questions. And then maybe that leads to the other services that I offer where I do
Correct.
mentoring or I also do a thing which I think is very important for a lot of players that are overseas already and playing. I offer
Mm,
like an emergency service where some of these
wow.
players have agents
Yeah.
So they don't have someone to give them much needed information. If you get fired without an agent, you're going to get screwed over from the team, 100%.
Yeah.
You know, if you get hurt, you don't have an agent, you're going to get screwed over. So
Wow.
a lot of these players have a question that need answers quick. Hey, I
Yeah.
just got fired and I book you. Can you help me through the next steps? What do I need to look for? How much do you think I can get back from them? But if you don't know these things, if nobody's
Yeah.
helping you, then you're
Right.
really lost. So
Right.
things like that, and the consultations, the mentorship, these things take time. That's what I'm asking you to pay for. The knowledge, you can look up everything online. You can look on my webpage. You can look on my Instagram. There's a lot of things that I post from the book on that you literally don't have to pay for. But if you want plans of action, do you want steps to find an agent? Do you want to know how or when is a good time to write to a team? Because you can't just
Yeah.
write to a team at any time. Those are the things that are going to take me time. Do you want me to watch your video and tell you what level I see you at? Those are things that take time.
Yep.
That's what I'm asking you to pay for. The knowledge you're going to get anyway. I can if you want to write a DM me, I can give you that. You know. So for me, it's not about the money. It's not about and definitely my rates are not that expensive. I've done it on purpose like that. Even though my business partner says I'm a fool, I should definitely charge more. But for me, it's more of I've got a great life, man. I'm a teacher. I got a nice house. I got my family here. I've been there, done that. So I want to give back. I want to be able
Yes, sir.
to show that, hey, I mentored this guy. Look where he is now. That's the best thing possible. That's the best scenario possible, you know?
Yes, sir.
So that's the most important thing for me, and just the service, the giving back. That's a big part of my DNA.
Man, love that. Love everything that you stand for. You're obviously your business represents. You're paying it forward, and you're trying to grow the game the right way. So I'll make sure that all of those links to your social media and everything are down. If you guys are watching this via YouTube, it'll be in the description below. Sean, thank you so much for your time, my brother. I can't say it
Problem.
enough. Man, if there's anything that I can do to
Hey,
help to
hey,
spread the word,
now that you just said it, how
yes,
about
sir.
you come on as a guest on my podcast?
Let's do it. Let's do
Okay,
it.
we'll talk about it when we get on.
For sure. Well, everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the Transition One-on-One. I'm Korey Harris. This is Sean J. McCaw, education player specialist. I got the words mixed up, but he's an
Don't
extraordinaire.
worry.
I'm sure you guys felt the energy. This was a lot of fun. So we're going to come back with more. Make sure that you stay tuned. Make sure that you look out for the updates across both of our social media platforms. Much love to you guys. God bless.